Stefano Monza ha rilevato il corso di 2 giorni di prove ufficiali, ha fermato il cronometro sull'1.23.701, naturalmente guida per il colore del bravo Tiro Honda, la Tires Honda al suo fianco con il numero 33, sempre in settima fila, autore del 14° tempo, troviamo Andrea Iglesias, altro pilota italiano della Jordan Ford, corre per il colore del team Sevenham Jordan, il suo tempo 1.23.921.
Of all the Grand Prix circuits, there's no other that has the sheer charisma of Monza, because this is the one that's hosted top-level motor racing for some 70 years. It's where the all-time greats have thrilled the world, men like Caracciola, Nuvolari, Ascari, Moss and Fangio. Grand Prix history almost literally oozes from the tarmac. And it's where, today, the two top men who are vying for the World Championship renew their struggle for supremacy, Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell. They do so on the toughest track of the year, where reliability could decide the race after a thrilling final qualifying session in which Ayrton Senna took his 59th pole position, with Mansell desperately unlucky not to be there after being badly balked on his first attempt and losing a lot of time in heavy traffic on his second. But the excitement at Monza started on Thursday, when the motor racing world learned that the sensational newcomer, Michael Schumacher, had switched from the Jordan team with which he'd made his debut in Belgium to the Benetton team, in favour of Roberto Moreno, who had in turn taken Schumacher's place with Jordan. Confused? So was everybody. And sadly, the transfers involving team bosses Tom Walkinshaw and Eddie Jordan created a continuing legal wrangle which does Formula One no credit. But Schumacher has continued to astound by qualifying 7th in his first drive for Benetton. Michael Schumacher is the newest of the young Grand Prix drivers, but his new teammate, 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet, is the oldest, and he's been celebrating his 200th Grand Prix with mixed feelings, for it seems likely that he too will be an ex-Benetton driver next year. But what about Ferrari at Monza, the team the passionate tifosi cheer for so frenziedly? The prancing horse has yet to win this year and doesn't seem likely to do so here because motor racing's most famous team is in disarray.
In fact, we had a good car last year, and especially the team worked very well during the year. When I arrived in the team, they were listening to me, and they were very motivated to progress. And on the engine side, especially, we made a big step forward, and also on the chassis side. And then we reached the end of the season where our car was almost the best, or one of the best, with the McLaren anyway, and it was getting better and better. What the problem was, the people without a big experience of Formula One thought that when one car was competitive in the last race, it was for sure competitive in the first race of the next season, which is absolutely not true at all in modern Formula One. Even if I need some luck, I will take it, you know, because especially at Monza and also for me, I've never done a season without winning a race, except the first year at McLaren. But I would be surprised if I don't win one this year. But that would be very bad for me if I can't.
Passiamo alla penultima fila, 12ª, dove troviamo l'altro pilota italiano Nicola Larsi con la vettura numero 34 e l'allampo del Central Val Modena Team. Il pilota italiano ha fatto segnare il tempo di 1.25.717, al suo fianco troviamo con in the central car, more than a single Lamborghini number 34, 1 minute 55.717, and Eric Taylor having his 30th Grand Prix, driving his Lola Ford number 29, 1 minute 25.871. Della Lotus, spinta dal motore giallo del Team Lotus, 1.25.941 il tempo della finlandese, mentre al suo fianco con l'ultimo tempo Oliver Grullard, pilota francese della Ford Metal, spinta dal motore Sport, And on the final road, the British Dika Hacken, there it is, 1 minute to go, 1 minute before the final rover. Dika Hacken in the Lotus car number 11, 1 minute 25.941. And the British Dika on the third forward, number 14, 1 minute
The man in a green flag will go across. There he is. He's ready. They're ready to go now. This is the critical time.
start. Mansell slots in second. Berger is third. Patrese is in fourth position. Martini is trying to come up on the outside, but into the Rettifilio it is Senna, Mansell, Berger, Patrese, then the two Ferraris, followed by one of the Benettons. Martini has got ahead of Nelson Piquet, so Michael Schumacher is in 7th position in the Benetton. Everybody has got away cleanly, and it's Senna, Mansell, Berger, Patrese. Michael Schumacher certainly got further in Italy than he got in Belgium. There he goes. And Capelli has come up well. Ivan Capelli started 12th on the grid, and he's made up several places already. Now they are approaching the Ascari bends. And they're approaching them at some 180 miles an hour, slowing down to 120 to get through. Senna, Mansell, Berger, Patrese. Alesi is in 5th position. Alain Prost is down to 6th position, so he's been passed by his teammate. Michael Schumacher is still 7th, and Patrese was having a look at Gerhard Berger to try and get through there. They're coming through to complete lap 1 with Pierluigi Martini challenging Nelson Piquet. And across the line, Senna leads.
Yes, and that really was a copybook start from Ayrton Senna, just what he wanted. And not a lot Nigel Mansell could do about that. But as we discussed earlier, this is a race where passing can be done on merit. And Mansell now tracking Senna. I see dust in the background there. We couldn't see what happened. There's been an incident there coming out of the Rettifilio by the look of it. Now, let's check the cars to see that we're all in place. First three are still the same. Orth, Patrese, Ferrari, Schumacher. So, not in the leading group. Now we've got a replay coming here, and it's the group, that's the first 7 you see, but we have, whoops, a bit of curb hopping by Jean Alesi,
who very nearly hit Riccardo Patrese. Now this is it from the Ferrari. Now that's Prost, so you see Jean Alesi going through and over the gravel trap at the Rettifilio, creating an enormous cloud of dust. And trouble in the pits. It's a Ferrari, and it's obviously Jean Alesi. Well, he's been a bit of a wild man one way and another in several races this year. He was obviously trying too hard there, and that going off is Martin Brundle in the Brabham Yamaha. Martin didn't have a very good practice, and he certainly hasn't had a very good race so far.
Regarding Alesi's off there at the Rettifilio, that was a pure mistake. There was no reason for him to be pushing that hard into the Rettifilio to make that mistake. And as a Jordan off into the sand trap, and it looked like Moreno's flashy yellow helmet. Yes, that is Roberto Moreno. And what a disappointing finish to a terrible weekend for Roberto Moreno. Summarily sacked from the Benetton team for no good reason when he had a valid contract with them, and then this.
Lap 5 out of 53 with Jean Alesi last, having had that tyre stop.
But there's a mistake, and that looked like Patrese coming past Berger.
Yes, and there they are. So first Senna second, Mansell, Riccardo Patrese, the Italian veteran, has moved in the second Williams Renault up into third position ahead of Gerhard Berger. So now Senna has got two Williams Renaults breathing down his neck metaphorically. Alain Prost is still fifth, Schumacher sixth, Piquet seventh, Capelli is in eighth position, and ninth is Pierluigi Martini.
And do I detect the old McLaren Achilles heel that caused that little delay for Berger, namely gearbox trouble? Berger looked to me as if he was fumbling for a gear then when Patrese ducked round him, and he's dropped back a bit. So certainly it would appear there's some sort of mechanical trouble for Berger, and my guess would be gearbox, but that's very much guesswork as Prost comes past. So Berger is in trouble and Schumacher's right behind.
Yes, Gerhard Berger has had most of the McLaren bad luck this season, 5 retirements. Ayrton Senna, of course, ran out of petrol a couple of times, but he's kept going long enough for those 6 victories. And now you see that the battle is developing, really, between Nigel Mansell in second place, there he is, and Ayrton Senna, with Riccardo Patrese ahead of Berger, Prost ahead of... No, there's the McLaren, still in fourth position. Prost is fifth, Schumacher tucked up tight behind him. So, McLarens, Ferraris, and the single Benetton Ford of Michael Schumacher. Up to the Roja. And Schumacher is challenging now. Schumacher having a go at Alain Prost, and it looks to me as though he's going through.
Well, no, he would have been overly brave to have stayed inside Prost then, because they enter the first Desmo pretty much flat. But Schumacher is looking most impressive, and I don't think he's going to stay where he is for very long. He had to drop back quite a lot then, having to back off to let Prost get into Lesmo, but he will soon recover that lost ground. As we look at the Leighton house in the pits, and that was Maurizio Gugelmin. Main excitement this weekend, of course, has taken place off the track, and that involves the wrangling over Michael Schumacher. The situation I find quite deplorable has much more to do with big business, vested interests, and pure greed than motor racing. Sadly, Schumacher himself seems to be more of a passenger in his fate being decided than a participant.
And you can see that Nigel Mansell is really breathing down the rear wing of Ayrton Senna's McLaren now, and he's getting into a position where he could attack and take the lead.
Yes, things very much hotting up at the front. Williams did indeed take it, or Mansell took a little bit of a breather. He didn't want to ruin his tyres early on by pressing Senna. That was quite the right thing to do, but now he seems to be mounting an attack, and Patrese, of course, is right there as well. Now, behind them, Berger, you may remember, seemed to have a bit of a hiccup a couple of laps ago, and Patrese got past, and Prost nearly did. Well, whatever his problem was, it doesn't seem to be afflicting him now, because the last time across the line was his fastest lap of the race, and he's got going again. He's actually pulled away a little bit from Prost. So if he... And it's quite possible that he has had a bit of gearbox problems, but when and you get surprised by it. But once you clocked what the problem is in the cockpit, you can very often drive round it, and that would appear that if he does have a mechanical problem, he's obviously learnt what to do. It's minor, and he can cope with it. And Patrese is really pressing Nigel Mansell. Now, I wonder what... Mansell had to block him there into the Rettifilio. Now, I wonder what the Williams team orders are here, if any.
Good question, because Patrese is determined to do well here. Of course, he hasn't given up his World Championship hopes. Something dreadful would have to happen to Senna for a series of races in order for Riccardo Patrese still to be able to win the World Championship. But all is not lost for the Italian, and he obviously decided to have a go at Nigel Mansell there. No change in the first 6 as... up towards the Lesmo bends again go Senna, now out of them. Mansell, Patrese. In the background, Gerhard Berger is still within sight of the 2 Williams cars ahead of him. This is the Ascari bends. And it looks to me as though Maurizio Gugelmin is about to be engulfed by, first of all, the McLaren, then the two Williams, then Gerhard Berger, Alain Prost still soldiering on, and Alesi is coming up through the field, but he's still well down after that long stop of his.
And the power of the Honda engine seems able to keep the Williamses at bay at the moment, but bear in mind it's being helped. There is Frank Williams, of course, watching on TV. And I think the back marker, yes, and Gugelmin, well, he got out of the way all right. That's one way of doing it. No problem with him blocking the leaders there.
Maurizio Gugelmin was very, very lucky to get away with it. I remember seeing Bruno Giacomelli bogged down well and truly in that gravel trap in the past, but Gugelmin had got enough momentum in the Leighton House to keep going. Here's a replay of it. Watch him. I suspect he may have been watching Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell in his mirrors as well. Anyway, he locks up, goes over the curb, goes on across the gravel, across the other curb, back into the race. Senna leads, Mansell second, Patrese third, Berger coming out still in fourth position, Prost and Schumacher. Now there is Martin Brundle. Now, is this going to be Mansell's chance? And he's waving Patrese. Is he waving Patrese through? Yes, he is. He is. He saw Nigel Mansell's hand come out of the cockpit. And does this mean that Mansell has a problem? I can't see him willingly let Patrese through unless he has.
No, I don't think that necessarily means that he's got a problem. I think probably that he felt that Patrese is quicker than him. Patrese, after all, came up on him very quickly once he got past Berger. He's pressed him all the way, and I think what Mansell wants is to see if Patrese can succeed where he has failed in getting past Ayrton Senna. After all, Nigel has tried for many laps. He's been well placed. He has not been able to do it. It may be that Patrese has a little bit of a different setup in his car, or maybe his engine's working a bit better. And because, above all, Williams need Senna not to win this race. If Patrese can get in front of Senna, then he can help Mansell. And this may be very good team tactics indeed. Let's hope that Mansell doesn't have a problem.
He's dropped back just a little, but he may be doing that quite deliberately. Anyway, all three of them have got to take Martin Brundle, who is keeping ahead of the McLaren and the two Williams well. But if they arrive at the wrong place from Ayrton Senna's point of view, it could give Riccardo Patrese, who is really pushing now, the opportunity to get through and take the lead in the Italian Grand Prix, which of course he has never won, and there is no race he would like to win more than that. And there is Ayrton Senna taking the line to keep Patrese back as they go into the Parabolica. Now, if Patrese was just a bit closer, and he's not, he could have possibly got out of Ayrton Senna's slipstream and taken the lead.
Yes, you see, the other thing is the biggest difference in points is between first and second place. And if they can take first away from Senna, then at least Mansell would only slip back a couple of points if he was third to Senna's second, rather than four. So there is a big difference. But from Senna's point of view, I don't think if push comes to shove, he'll fight Patrese very hard, or certainly won't take any risks over it, because so long as his job is to finish in front of Nigel Mansell. And if he can finish in front of Mansell, wherever it is, it really doesn't matter to him at the moment what Patrese does. If, of course, this tactic doesn't work and Patrese can't get past, Mansell can always come back up to Patrase's gearbox, and if the worst comes to the worst, ask the team. And that's a blow up for the LaRousse. Nasty smoke there from Eric Bernard.
Yes, the only one to start, incidentally, because Aguri Suzuki, his teammate, blew two engines in practice. So out of the Italian Grand Prix have gone Moreno and Bernard. Oh, and over the curb goes the Williams.
Yes, Patrese really trying now. He's on a charge, and I think this is a very good move by Mansell, because it's enabled him to sit back, have a little bit of a rest, and he looks extremely comfortable.
My goodness, that was a major blow-up, and that's exactly what happened to Aguri Suzuki in practice on Saturday and on Friday. A gigantic eruption from the V8 engine behind him. Patrese going for it now.
Yes, that's the closest he's been out of the Lesmo. Patrese, he's right in the toe. This is a chance. And he's inside. Patrese takes the lead. Now, let's see. The McLaren Honda has looked stronger in a straight line. Senna lost a lot of ground through the chicane. He certainly won't be close enough to have a go back at Patrese there. And of course now Mansell's got the problem that at the moment Senna is in the toe that Patrese is offering, which will make Senna in fact more difficult for Mansell to pass.
As they come up to the Ascari bends under the bridge and the old banking, Riccardo Patrese coolly pulls out from under the rear wing of Ayrton Senna's McLaren, takes the lead in the Italian Grand Prix, and Riccardo Patrese got the whole grandstand on its feet as he went through in the lead. And now Nigel Mansell is going to have a go, because you can see that Riccardo Patrese is pulling away now, and if Nigel Mansell can get past Ayrton Senna, he will be able to do the same thing. I have little doubt that his Renault V10 engine will have just the same horsepower as Patrese's, and then Ayrton Senna would have a major problem, because Mansell could get past Patrese on orders or on merit, and that would mean that the gap... Oh, that's Patrese spinning! But Patrese has spun out down to third position. Gerhard Berger is catching him, and Patrese's got to get the momentum on again, and now the attack is down to Nigel Mansell as they come down to the Parabolica with Gerhard Berger challenging Patrese, who's desperately trying to keep him back.
And that was a very stupid mistake by Riccardo Patrese. He was pulling away comfortably, absolutely no reason to do that. We saw the puff of smoke before we'd even seen Patrese spun off, and that will not help Mansell's chances. He needed Patrese out front there, he needed him around. He certainly was doing a good job for the team, and now he's thrown it all away, and that's a silly mistake. Mansell switching brilliantly, selling the dummy, and he went to sell the dummy to Senna, and that's a tactic that Mansell has made almost his own. But this time it didn't work, and I've no doubt that Senna was ready for that.
As out of the pits goes Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton house. And Patrese, Riccardo Patrese has dropped right back, so third now is Gerhard Berger. There's a replay. That's Patrese going out of the race. Riccardo Patrese retires from the Italian Grand Prix. It's all down to Mansell now. Berger is third. Prost has moved up into fourth position. Schumacher is fifth. His teammate Nelson Piquet in the second Benetton is sixth.
And Senna will be thankful at the moment for the tow he's getting from Pirro's car, and that should carry him in ahead, yes. What he doesn't want, though, is any problem on the exit. Somebody's made a lot of smoke there. but it seems to be whoever made it has gone, and that's a Ferrari in.
It's Alesi for the second time, and judging from the position of his hands, yes, Alesi retires. I saw his hands getting ready to take the steering wheel off. And I was beginning to think that he must have some sort of a problem because of the way he was failing to make progress. And there is the blow-up. John Alesi retires from the Italian Grand Prix, and Ferrari's awful season is continuing. You'll be able to study the comparative performance of the Brabham Yamaha and the McLaren Honda now as Senna dives out of his slipstream. Nigel Mansell does exactly the same thing.
And it's interesting to see Senna duck back in front of the Brabham then, and that was to stop Mansell following Senna and getting the benefit of the tow. And that was good professional driving, although it looked a bit messy as Senna was weaving around on the straight. He was in fact doing something tactically important. Mansell is in possession to challenge. He's going down the inside, and Senna locked his left front there just as he turned in, but he had it under control. But that was a marginal moment for both drivers. Mansell must have been right on the limit of his brakes then. And Senna coming under the ultimate pressure now from Nigel Mansell. It really is maximum pressure.
And Gerhard Berger is lapping just as fast now as Mansell has another look. Senna resisting the pressure as he has done and goes past the Tyrrell Honda. Up to the Ascari bends, and Nigel Mansell, is he going through and taking the lead on this occasion? Yes, he is. Mansell leads in Italy as Patrese did, and I would not expect Nigel Mansell, who now is in a position to get 10 points and Senna to have 6, to do what Riccardo Patrese did, and that is spin off.
This is Mansell ducking out of the tow, and clearly Senna is struggling now for grip. He's fought as well as he can, but I would expect Mansell now to be able to go away pretty comfortably from Ayrton Senna. And in fact, if that was probably Senna in for tyres, we can't see. And that's Senna on a very fast stop by the McLaren team indeed. So Ayrton Senna onto fresh rubber. Now, this is a fairly quick pit stop. Let's see what he's lost on the road. And can Senna chase Mansell and catch him, having made the top stop for tyres? I'm sure Mansell will try and stay out and run the rest of the race on those tyres. And Senna 16 seconds behind Mansell over the line as he went out of the pits. Now, it'll be a little bit more than that because he won't have been up to full speed, but it is catchable. There is some one-third, just over a third of the race left to go.
We're riding now with Nelson Piquet, who is in 6th position behind Ayrton Senna. That's not Senna in front of us at the present moment, but both the Benettons are in the points, and the Italian Grand Prix has really come alight.
And there's Ayrton Senna behind Schumacher, and Senna needs to get past Schumacher pretty quickly. He got heavily carved up then.
By Olivier Griard, and that has given Schumacher the opportunity to pull away. Senna, of course, can use the... And he's very angry indeed with Olivier Griard, who's getting a bad reputation for getting in people's way. He certainly got in the way of Ayrton Senna there, and the Brazilian angrily waved his hand at the Frenchman as he went past.
And we have a new fastest lap of the race for Nigel Mansell, and that is significant because even on his relatively worn tyres, Mansell is able to put in a super quick lap. We haven't actually seen, and that's a pit stop there for Nelson Piquet. So tyres late in the race for Piquet.
And you're looking at Michael Schumacher in 4th place and Ayrton Senna taking it from the 22-year-old German, who is driving an absolutely magnificent race. Hats off to him. Mansell out on his own.
Well, Senna is making his response, but it's too late, I'm sure, to do any real damage. New fastest lap of the race for Ayrton Senna. And Berger, of course, will make way, I'm sure, for Senna, but the big thing is, can Senna catch Prost?
Jonathan Palmer in the pits with Patrese.
Ricardo, we saw you spin, we then saw you stop. Could you tell us what happened, please?
Well, for the spin, I got a small hesitation in the gearbox. Didn't catch third when I was braking for Variante Ascari. And then I went into third while I was going into the corner, locked a little bit the rear wheel, and I spun. And I could go away from that, okay. I did half a lap, and then the gearbox broken completely.
Great shame, Ricardo. We're very sorry for you.
Yes, and I certainly owe Riccardo Patrese an apology for my remarks there. It looked like a mistake he'd made, but once again, the Williams gearbox seems to have tripped him up, and I do beg his pardon for suggesting it was his mistake.
Well, fingers crossed, Mansell and Williams enthusiasts. Here he is. I hesitate to say anything, but now you're going to see Gerhard Berger move over and follow team orders and discipline and let Ayrton Senna move up into 3rd position, to move up from 3 points to more.
Yes, and there's no way, all things being equal, that Senna is going to catch Mansell unless Mansell runs into some sort of mechanical problem or a major tyre problem. But the question now is, can Senna make 2nd place? Berger will let him go. Prost is was last time they came by, some 5 seconds ahead, and still is. And Senna's through, so we shall see if Senna can set about, catch and pass Alain Prost. He's got fresh tyres on, Prost hasn't, and that should certainly be an advantage for him.
Piquet about to take 7th place from Ivan Capelli in front in the Leighton House. Coming up to the Rettifilio, he goes through, doing 200 miles an hour at that point, and then he closes right down.
Yes, and that was a marvellous view of just what it's like to be getting a tow, as Capelli leaves himself no room to get into the corner. That was over-committing by Capelli, and he had nowhere to go because Piquet was inside him, and that was poor driving from one so experienced. But we had a marvellous view from Piquet's cockpit then of just what it's like as you get this tremendous suck in the tow, in the hole in the air, and the car goes quicker and quicker as you come up on the chap in front, and then the momentum carries you past.
Senna now is right up with Prost, but now Mansell is 16.4 seconds ahead, and every lap that Mansell can increase his lead means that there is 1 lap less for Ayrton Senna to cut into it, and he's still not past the Ferrari.
Yes, I'm sure that Senna's ambition in this race is confined to 2nd place, and he's made, at which he is now taking. He's passed Alain Prost.
There are 6 laps to go now, including the one they are on, and Mansell leads with 10 points potentially in his grasp by 17.7 seconds. Nelson Piquet's 200th Grand Prix. His place in the Benetton team is at risk because Tom Walkinshaw's team have signed Michael Schumacher, and there are strong rumours, which everybody denies, that Walkinshaw has also signed Martin Brundle, in which case Nelson Piquet, wiping his windscreen at about 180 miles an hour, is not only fighting for a World Championship point, but to retain his place in the team.
Yes, there were rumours here that his place in the team was under threat this very weekend to make way for Michael Schumacher. if Roberto Moreno couldn't have been manoeuvred out of his car as Piquet gets into the toe, gets right up behind De Cesaris, but De Cesaris is making himself wide, defending his position, and still maintains his place in front of Nelson Piquet. Now coming up to cross the line, Piquet there 47 laps, and this time he has got enough, and I'm sure Piquet will carry past him this time. And the Rettifilio, and no sign of the nose of the Jordan, so Nelson Piquet moves into 6th place.
As Mansell goes through into his 51st lap, 3 laps to go, including the one that he is on. And if they stay where they are now, Mansell on 10 points will have reduced the gap in the World Championship to Ayrton Senna by 4 points, to a lead for Ayrton Senna of 18 points. And that's still a gigantic mountain to climb for the Englishman. But if he can keep it up, there's still 5 races to go in Portugal, in Spain, and Japan and Australia, which of course makes 4 races to go. And if he can keep on chipping away and hope that something goes wrong with Senna, Mansell is still in the World Championship.
Yes, and what a tremendous Grand Prix we've had today. Mansell, it looks easy now, but it certainly wasn't for most of the race. He had to work all the way until Senna went for tyres at 2/3 distance to get the lead. He had to fight, his teammate Patrese was in there, and we had a tremendous battle up front. But the significant factor of the race, apart from this tightening of the World Championship battle, has been the performance of Michael Schumacher, who in the Benetton is currently at this moment running some 7.5 seconds behind Gerhard Berger and some 15 seconds in front of his own teammate for this race, Nelson Piquet. However, it doesn't forgive. It's a tremendous performance and tremendous news for Benetton. It does not forgive the difficulties that have gone on, the contractual arguments, the moving around in the season, and the extraordinary business of Mercedes putting their driver into a Ford-sponsored car. As we look at Nigel Mansell on his last lap, there's Mika Häkkinen in front of him, going into the 2 Lesmos. And tremendous performance from Michael Schumacher, but I wonder just where he would have been. Would he have been in front of Berger had he been in the Jordan, which on the evidence here was the better car of the 2.
So Mansell up to Mika Häkkinen, who is in 14th place. He's into the Ascari Benz for the last time. He's leading Senna by 17 seconds, and surely, this time it's going to happen, and Mansell is going to come home for his 4th very well-deserved victory of 1991. Into the Parabolica for the last time. When he gets out of it, he really could put the car into neutral and coast home. And I'm going to say that Nigel Mansell has won the Italian Grand Prix. He thinks so. He's waving his hand. He has. Mansell wins and takes the 10 points that goes with it. A magnificent victory. A delighted Williams team. And a delighted, of course, Frank Williams, Patrick Head, Adrian Newey, who so capably designed this car with Patrick Head. And Ayrton Senna finishes in 2nd position, 16.3 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. Alain Prost finishes only half a second behind Ayrton Senna. Prost made a terrific charge on the last lap, and he lapped 2 seconds quicker than Ayrton Senna, who I believe had backed off rather than being in trouble. Gerhard Berger in the 2nd, but well done, Nigel. Applauding himself, applauding the team, applauding the crowd, applauding anything. So Mansell wins, Senna 2nd, Prost 3rd, Berger home in 4th place. Michael Schumacher finishes the first Grand Prix that he's gone the full distance in, and only his 2nd race in a superb point-scoring 5th position. And both the Benettons are in the top 6 with Nelson Piquet in 6th position.
leading. Ayrton Senna now has 77 points to Nigel Mansell's 59. 18 points between the two of them as attendiamo naturalmente i piloti sul podio per la premiazione, mentre vedete che il tracciato piano piano viene coperto dai tifosi che stanno correndo. Seconda posizione, Ayrton Senna, come Monza. Premia i diretti complimenti a Milano, eccolo Ayrton Senna. Terzo classificato, era continuato a correre presidente della Sky, mentre il dottor Alessi consegna la coppa alla terza corrida, Williams Nigel Mansell, vincitore del campione d'Italia. Alain Prost terzo classificato con la Ferrari numero 27 e regala così tante emozioni per questo Gran Premio.
So, a marvellous fourth win of the season for Nigel Mansell, ahead of Ayrton Senna, who finished only half a second in front of Alain Prost. Berger finished fourth just before he stopped, and a quite outstanding fifth place for Michael Schumacher in his debut drive for Benetton, with his teammate Nelson Piquet sixth in his 200th Grand Prix. And now the World Championship gap is down to 18 points between Senna and Mansell, with Alain Prost back to fifth as a result of his fine drive. Williams are 1 point closer to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, but 15 is a big gap. 4 races to go. Mansell could still win his championship and Williams could still win theirs.
Grazie Mansell, grazie Costa, grazie Senna. Il nome di Inghilterra è veramente incredibile, emozionatissimo davanti al pubblico dei tifosi. Mi sarebbe piaciuto certamente lo scorso anno quando indossava la tuta rossa salire sulla gradina più alta del podio, ed ora finalmente anche quel cancello è stato aperto, la pista è nostra da onorare e da chiudere questo Gran Premio d'Italia, appunto la 62esima edizione. Si chiede così questa manifestazione che ha regalato ancora tantissime emozioni, bellissime e alle volte deludenti. E ancora una volta, la prima cosa che vorrei fare è ringraziare voi, perché siete un pubblico meraviglioso che in questo momento state affollando il tracciato di Monza, scrivendo un'altra grande pagina di leggenda, perché siete voi che fate la leggenda di Monza. Vorrei ringraziare naturalmente tutti gli uomini di servizio, i commissari di percorso.
Nigel, finally you won this race. You really wanted to win in Monza. Nigel, finalmente hai vinto a Monza e ci tenevi molto.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic race, and what's more is that it had to be won, and I think the Williams team did a great job today for me.
Era una gara che volevo veramente vincere, il team Williams come al solito ha fatto un grande lavoro. But for the championship now didn't change a lot. Per il campionato non è cambiato molto.
We have to wait and see. As I said before, I wish I was 18 points in front, but there's still 4 races to go, and we shall work very hard till the end of the year, and then we'll just have to wait and see.
Bisogna vedere cosa succede, sono 18 punti dietro ad Ayrton Senna, cercherò di dare il massimo fino alla fine del campionato e vedremo cosa succede. During the race you let Riccardo pass you. Why? Durante la gara hai lasciato passare Patrese, come mai?
Well, we'd made a plan that we try to go all the way through with the tyres, and when I got close to Ayrton on full fuel in the beginning of the race, my car was moving too much and sliding. So I thought, well, I'll let Riccardo go by because I know his home Grand Prix will push Ayrton very hard and maybe use his tyres up more. And Riccardo was doing a great job. And but then once he got into the lead, I believe he had a problem with the gearbox and spun out. But then that gave me about 15 laps or so having a rest and just conserving my tyres, and then I came to attack Ayrton.
Ecco, ho lasciato passare Patrese perché la mia macchina aveva qualche piccolo problema d'assetto e sapevo che Riccardo ci teneva molto a vincere il Gran Premio di casa, quindi poteva attaccare Ayrton e insidiarlo e fargli consumare di più le gomme. Io ho potuto riposarmi e alla fine ho potuto prendere il comando. Ayrton, sei arrivato secondo, però il campionato direi che è più vicino per te.
Il campionato è aperto, è stata una gara bella, credo, per il pubblico, una bella lotta. Loro dovevano vincere, Nigel doveva vincere per continuare in lotta per il campionato con una possibilità reale. Lo ha fatto, però anche il secondo posto ha minimizzato i problemi per il futuro. Comunque con 4 corse il campionato rimane aperto. Soltanto che ogni corsa che passa è più dura per loro, nel fatto che se non finiscono per qualche problema allora viene proprio dura per loro. Comunque loro hanno ancora un piccolo vantaggio, credo, su tutti gli altri, e questo conta a loro favore nelle prossime corse. Noi speriamo di migliorare un poco il telaio, che è il nostro punto debole nel momento, per lottare un po' più vicino con loro e cercare di avere dei risultati che si vogliono nelle prossime 2-3 corse.
Fra i primi tu sei l'unico che ti sei fermato a cambiare le gomme, come mai?
Ma la mia macchina non aveva un bilanciamento adeguato e allora aveva una usura di gomma credo un po' più alta e l'equilibrio si deteriorava mano a mano passava la corsa. Quando Monza era vicino ho cominciato ad avere un po' di vibrazione e la macchina scivolava un po', e poi di colpo la gomma anteriore sinistra ha cominciato a vibrare molto, si è bloccata e è andato proprio in crisi, proprio nel giro che lui mi ha passato, e allora lì ho deciso di fermarmi subito perché non c'era la possibilità di continuare così, è stata la decisione giusta per finire secondo.
Alain Prost, evidentemente non c'era proprio niente da fare contro Williams e McLaren oggi.
Penso di no, anche se la mia macchina era molto veloce all'inizio, era molto facile di stare dietro a loro. Il solito problema era Gerhard, che oggi era Era veloce ma faceva molti errori, infatti è andato dritto nella chicane 2 o 3 volte e mi ha messo molti cose nei spoke nei radiatori, subito c'è la temperatura che è andato su più di 15 gradi e infatti con la mia macchina che aveva molto poco carica dietro a lui era difficile di superare, che è impossibile. Quando sono passato ero veloce, ma alla fine della gara è il solito problema con la macchina che salta molto, diviene molto difficile in frenata e anche il motore che perde un po' di potenza, soprattutto in accelerazione, ma il terzo posto è bello anche per la squadra perché non ho finito le ultime 3 gare, l'affidabilità è venuta di nuovo, spero solamente di vincere una gara fino al campionato.
Ci sono delle possibilità per vincere?
Per vincere dobbiamo mettere a posto il telaio, soprattutto fino a gara, e partire in prima fila, è quello più importante.